Yeah, would you say that, I mean, could you extrapolate that that was anti-Santorum votes versus pro-Casey votes?
Yeah, but I think that masks the continuing movement of the Western market towards the Republican Party. If the HRCC was heavily invested in races this year in districts that had Republican registration as low as 29%. Now, they didn't win any of them, but it wasn't like they lost them 65-35 and it wasn't as if the House Democrats didn't contest them back the other way. So, as there are fewer and fewer Republicans from the Southeast, you're going to have fewer and fewer Democrats from the Southwest as those seats come up, especially for open seats. Okay. Now, to that having been said, we have to do redistricting still, so you never know. I was counting up all of the, I'll say that in the rest races. Okay.
Our readers, by the way, had predicted by a margin of 5-1 that Bob Casey would be reelected.
All three GOP office candidates were outraged by their Democrat opponents, although with his own loans counted, John Marr actually had more to spend than Pasquale, at least according to the last reports that dropped about a week out. Diana Irie Vaughn did not apparently air even one TV or radio spot, and neither Freed nor Marr raised enough money to get on broadcast TV in the Philly market, home to about 40% of the state's voters. Freed did have a good cable rotation, however, good cable does not equal broadcast. And I mentioned about reliably Democrat Elk County going that way. Kathleen Kane led the ticket in Pennsylvania that got just over 3,020,000 votes. Although again, that looks to get more as the final things come in. As I wrote in Peg Alert, you know, sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug, and this year, unfortunately, Dave Freed was the bug. I think a whole host of events came together to help Kathleen Kane, the first woman thing, the first Democrat, the anti Sandusky/State College, Penn State University, rather, feeling some of the electorate vis-a-vis the governor. So she ran well ahead of everyone else, including the president. That is quite remarkable. Jean Pasquale will now cause you some angst. There'll be a special election in this district in a couple of months. He won with under 50% of the vote because the Libertarian got almost 4% of the vote in this race. Swenson Summers, who ran for Senate in 2004 as a Libertarian candidate, has run for something else since then as well. And then Diana Irie Vaughn got 44%, and again here, the Libertarian, whose name escapes me, also got 3% change. In terms of bang for buck, Diana Irie Vaughn did pretty good. I would expect so little money.
Okay, I would say that, you know, our readers, 62% have predicted that Kathleen Kane would win, 72% thought John Marr would win, 82% were sure that Robert Ford would be reelected. So, you know, fairly safe bet. To go back for a minute to Eugene DePasquale's, and this seat's pretty Democratic in terms of its registration. Anyone heard anything yet about people waiting in the wings or candidates, or got any solicitations yet? They will be coming. You know, the seat isn't open until he resigns. One would presume he won't resign until he's sworn into the new office. And then the minimum would be 60 days. So my guess, and without having talked to Sam Smith about it, I think we'll look for a primary, kind of special election.
That'll be one or two. There's also one for Matt Smith.
Well, for both the special elections, will that be under the new district lines approved by the courts or under the existing district lines?
If they haven't yet approved new lines, they'll have to be under the old lines because they're the only ones that are around.
Once they're approved, then those districts take effect immediately. So,
First question for you on the Libertarian vote. Do you have any sense as to how, absent a Libertarian candidate, how those voters might have broken?
It's always been my supposition that folks who third-party vote would not vote in the race if the third-party person were not there.
They would have sat it out.
They would have, voted for the other ones and just. I know in the 04 Spectre race, the head of the Constitution Party my thought is those folks, you know, didn't want to vote for us and didn't want to vote for anyone else, so they just would have skipped the pass. But there's not ever been a lot of research done because it's always such a small percentage. Congressional delegation has gone from 13-5 to 12-6. Democrats do not have a member of Congress outside a major city, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and then Scranton/Wilkes-Barre. Nationally, it appears as though the Republican margin in the House will shrink somewhat to 234 seats, probably 232 now after some races in Arizona. Apparently, it's election month in Arizona, not election day. They're still doing a lot of counting. The race in Arizona, I forget the district number, where the former congresswoman was shot and her aide ran in the special and won. That race, every time there's an update, the lead changes. So the lead has changed there about 6 times since Tuesday. And now the Democrat, who's an incumbent, I think his last name was Barber, is ahead. So Mike Kelly didn't have much of a race, and it showed. Scott Perry didn't have much of a race once he got past his primary. You can see there that the 2 independent candidates got nearly 6% of the vote. 6th District, Jim Burlock had his second easy election in a row, so I'm sure he hopes manager that he continues to run. Pat Meehan almost hit 60, so it's going to be tough to challenge him because that district's so hard to get any traction. 8th District, which was supposedly the Democrats' big chance to upset an incumbent, they really didn't come close. Book Farr, who has now lost races for County Row Office, Commonwealth Court, and Congress. I don't know what she runs for next, but they had a couple third-party groups in here batting on Fitzpatrick. They raised a bunch of money. She was a very adept fundraiser for Congress. The DCCC did not invest any money in this race or the other races in the Southeast, and he has term limited himself. So the question now is whether the Democrats will go after him in 2014, because he said that would be his last term.
One of the things Matt, notice we're in the Southeast where they voted for the president at the top of the ticket and Bob Casey. And you read a lot of these articles, and particularly the tweets where that it's only 144 characters, so I'll give them credit there. But we're saying, oh, this is proof that Pennsylvania's a blue state. Yeah, and then you go down ballot, and it's a red state. So, what color we are depends on your level of analysis. And you can remember back, so the presidential in 8 was one thing, and then the gubernatorial 10 was another. The way the state went this time doesn't mean anything that's about 14, for instance. And in the Southeast, down ballot again, it's Republicans can still win.
This is the district where when I told you about the split proportionally, where there was a flip, Meehan carried this district, but in my cursory glance of trying to put together votes from the disparate parts that make the 7th, I believe the president won the 7th. So this would be a district where the Republican, even if he won the congressional race, would not have gotten the vote proportionally. Tom Reno is in a pretty safe district, and it showed his credit. Phil Scolo made a TV ad and actually got it aired. Lou Barletta fended off a spirited race from Gene Stilpen as a political pig. Still ran okay in this part of the district, but got swamped in the central and northern parts of the district.
Pig is available for holiday parties or ways to run it.
Keith Rothfuss is the new addition to the congressional delegation. This race had $10 million spent in it by outside groups, not by the campaigns, but by the outside groups. So I have a saying these days that a lot of times when these outside groups come in, candidates become, sometimes just spectators at their own election. This is definitely one that went that way. So he was able to, I think, do pretty well in Cambria County. If you remember in the primary, Fritz beat Altmaier by getting 91% of the vote in the Cambria and Somerset parts, which as I've said before, is just remarkable. Last week in Cambria County, Crits won handily, but it wasn't even 2-1. It was close, but not quite. And Rothfuss won the Somerset County portion, which is the Republican portion there. He won Allegheny. He lost Beaver very closely. Beaver County is the only county that's entirely in this district. And you remember how reliably Democrat Beaver County has been for a long time. Rothfuss lost it by, I think, about 1,500 votes. So that to me is quite telling. Poor Mark Crits, I've never met the man, but given what he had to do in the primary, what he did in the general, he certainly has my respect. I'm not sure that there is a Democrat congressman in the country who ran farther ahead of the president in his district and lost. My bet in looking at the results of the presidential race here is that Obama probably got about 40 or 41% of the vote in the 12th congressional district. Congressman Crits would say it was 40. Rated 8.5 points ahead of the president and lost. In most districts in the country, if you're rated 8.5 points above the president, I think you can be in the high 50s. And this guy is going to look for a huge job.
Speaking of which, though, if you're working congressional issues, remember, these people are still in office with the lame ducks. We have 3 lame ducks in the lame duck session: Tim Holden, Altmaier, and Crits. So if you're looking for votes, it might be worth talking to them.
If you're the DCCC after all the action here in 2010, your relatively poor performance here in 2012, and this fact, the Republican congressman who got reelected with the closest margin was that Piper Charlie Dent in the 15th district, who won so handily we don't even have a slide. His winning margin was only 13.2%. Every other Republican congressman in the state, his winning margin was more than 13.2%. So if you're the DCCC, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, what do you do here in 2014? Unless Crits or Altmaier want to go again at Rothfuss, it's really hard to see where you have any type of competitive race. Imagine you're trying to pitch a candidate to win, to run. Well, we didn't spend any money in the Southeast last time, even though the president was wrong in that. What are we going to do this time? Especially in the off-year elections, the turnout matrix for the state is more hospitable for the GOP. State Senate, you want to lead off with our prediction, or we can start?
Well, our readers predicted that we would see a returning Senate with 28 Republicans and 22 Democrats. They were almost right. We're going to be at 27-23. And that gets interesting for 2014. Why don't we first talk about what happened here, and then we can talk a little bit about implications for 2 years. So we had 4 open seat races. We're just going through them in numerical order.
I think this is the one that surprised most people. I think a lot of people had the Erie seat going Democrat and the seat in Allegheny County. This one was a surprise. Certainly not good for the business community in this race. When you look at the turnout in the city, Teplic's got a boost again from more Democratic turnout. Democratic turnout was not up overall, but it was steady in the urban centers. Okay. And obviously this district still has Harrisburg. Interestingly, all of the maps we've seen and the map that is currently up for review by the Supreme Court makes this a very Republican district. The current map, Harrisburg gets taken out and some other places around it, and Perry County gets added. So pro-choice, pro-gun control, Rob Teplitz, I don't think would be able to make a go of it in that district. So it'll be interesting if either side or both sides want to do redistricting now that they know who their incumbents actually are. So essentially, McNally got hurt because the margins for Teplitz in the city were higher, and quite frankly, he did not perform in the suburbs as well as he should have. For example, my precinct in Superior contribution of 152.48, he lost it by that margin. Mr. Hutchison ran unopposed. last Wednesday, he followed me on Twitter. So, he's obviously ready for new horizons. They just don't like D. Raja out there in that part of the club. After spending a lot of his money for this seat for county executive, I hope the guy, he's a really nice guy, unfortunately gets that message.
He does live in Matt Smith's house.
He does live in his house, so,
He could run again and spend it in the spring.
you can just put duct tape over the Senate part of the signs and put it out. This seat, and, you know, kudos to Matt Smith, because again, I have not examined the results for the top of the ballot specifically in this district, but I have to imagine that Romney and the other Smith did pretty good. So Matt Smith also turned the tide.
Yeah, you have to give some props to the Democrat Party for playing this one strategically, basically a placeholder run in the primary. It would have been fun to see it in a general election campaign. I personally love anybody who posts for a campaign photo of a Harvest Green shirt making a peace sign. But I think in the belief that Representative Mustio would win that. When he didn't, then the work started to have that person withdraw from the ballot and put Matt Smith on, who had a good shot against D. Raja. And they raised the money as well.
Now, in terms of special elections that could change parties, this seat will be competitive as it stands now. Who knows what happens in the district? But this district is a competitive district as it stands
It was
now.
Representative Stevenson's seat once upon a time. He was defeated in 2006 primary by Mark Harris. Then Mark Harris lost to Matt Smith in the general.
49th
Chris.
district, I'm sorry.
How much of a factor, going back to the Raja race, how much of a factor was, in your opinion, was the fact that he got so beat up by Mustio in the primary? Did that have
Let's look at
lasting?
let's look at the cumulative effect. He got beat up in the race for county executive by Fitzgerald.
November of last year,
He got beat up in the primary by Mustio / the Senate Republicans.
May of this year.
And the Senate Democrats did the same thing. So I think the cumulative effect was 47.3. And I think in any other generic Republican candidate probably would have won this seat. And I don't say that to malign Mr. Raja.
And the beating him up was he's a rich, out of touch guy who outsources jobs.
Right.
Gee, that played any other themes that we may have heard during the campaign. So.
Give Janet Anderson credit. The Republican registration here is about 32 again, 33%. So she did run ahead of registration. Sean Wiley, former aide of the county exec, got just over 60% of the vote. And barring some strange occurrence, and this is a district that should remain Democrat for a while, due to the strong registration edge they have, and the fact that this seat has the city and not the best Republican parts of the county. So you can do your part,
I did. Oh, I'm sorry. One time of those. Before we move on, let's start gaming it out for 2 years from now.
We gotta go through.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Republican State Senate Caucus campaign committee rather wanted to play offense somewhere, and they played it in the 35th district. Why is that? He's been here since like the 1890s, I think we said. Got 51.2% of the vote.
Right after the flood tax.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people looking at this race, I know it was me too, thought, well, he'll do fine in Cambria County and will narrow his margins in the other part. Clearfield he has, Clinton, Somerset he has. That was not the case. When we look at his county by county results, it was about 51-49 everywhere. So he got hit into Cambria County going towards Tom Smith and Mitt Romney as well. And in all the redraws I've seen in this district, it gets more Republican because they add Bedford County, which is 64-36 Republican county, reliable. So I don't know if this was a shot across the bow for 4 years from now.
Ron, if you can, you want to retell a story that you told me about how John Wozniak got here initially? sometimes the history is useful.
Oh.
The UC
And
vote.
was that when, I think then he took Murtha's seat when Murtha went to Congress. I think Wise was elected to the House. And then he moved to the Senate.
Okay, maybe I'm confusing the seats. I thought someone told me, I thought it was you, that there's an incumbent woman in the seat who cast a vote that she was told that she didn't have to cast on unemployment compensation or workers' compensation. Wrong seat.
I have a lot of old stories, that
That's
wasn't
not it.
mine though.
You
Never
can keep
mind.
it if you want, we'll give it to you. You
Yeah.
can.
I'll make one up.
In the 47 state Senate seat, the only place where I think the Senate Democrats really had a tough day, 6-7 months ago, a lot of folks were picking this to be a very competitive election. And 43% in that district, again, Beaver County, a lot of it, Lawrence. It shows you how much things have changed in Beaver County in that part of the world in the last 10 years. Okay.
Now, and I'm sure a lot of you gave this out already, but every 2 years we rank all of the lawmakers who are in by the number of years that they are of age plus the number of years of service. For 2014, individual number 1 is Stu Greenleaf, who is up for re-election, and who is, of course, in Montgomery County, an area hard for Republicans to hold. His son is now in office, County Row office in Montgomery County. Certainly, we've all heard stories. We'd like to see his son succeed him. But will 2014 be the year that Stewart retires? He'll be 73 on election day in 2014. Ted Erickson, also well into his 70s, to the south there, mostly Delaware County, up for election in 2 years. Others in that area, Tommy Tomlinson, Bob Mensch, give me that age where, I'm not saying anybody's thinking about it, hasn't announced anything, be clear about that, but certainly getting to that age where maybe we're in the number of years of service, or maybe retirement starting to enter their minds. Others in the area, not necessarily of the age retirement, tougher seats to hold. McElhaney seat, of course, Chuck's always got a tougher race. And then just to the north there, Pat Brown. Of course, if Pat would ever decide to retire, that seat goes into play as well. So you have 6 seats in the southeast in Dale Leach's home turf, who all of which could be in play, or and now the Democrats need to pick up 2 to tie at 25-25, 3 to win. So the loss of the 3 seats this time means something. Republicans, of course, have held the Senate, with the exception of 2 years from 92 to 94. They've held since 1980, so it's been a long run. But 2 years from now is going to be quite a test, because by coincidence, the seats that are tougher to hold in the southeast are all up together.
Now, the flip side of that are potentially vulnerable Democrats in the Southwest, where we're seeing a trend of the Republican, whether that be Senator Solebay, Furlow, Sinich. Again, when you look at the results in races in those territories in the last couple of years, Republicans are winning and Democrats are losing. Doesn't mean you necessarily beat one of those incumbents, but if there was an open seat, any generic Republican in that part of the world would automatically be the favorite. Yes, sir.
And you'll probably, we would think, have the new reapportionment plan approved by then too.
You can only hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we move on, do you have any comment on a lot has been written since election day, obviously, but the whole luck versus really great work on the Senate Dem pickups. Was it really great strategy, hard work? Was it a little bit of luck? Was it, what's your thought? I know there were some surprises for the Republicans, but I'm trying to get a handle on, is this a real tie?
I don't give the Senate Democrats any great kudos for winning the Erie seat.
Yeah.
To win a seat that's that Democrat, it's like any good team, you have to win the ones you're supposed to.
They had a solid candidate who raised money, but yes, they should have won that.
And I would not give them any credit for the 47th local seat ending up not being competitive, but it ended up not mattering for them. I think the seat in Allegheny County was kind of handed to them when it ended up who was our Republican nominee.
Not our Republican.
The Republican nominee. But I think credit goes to them for, again, they took advantage of what had dropped into their laps, so to speak. And I think the place where they really deserve a lot of credit is the district here of the 15. And I think what happened is they strategically moved their money from Erie and Allegheny County, because those were on the right flight path, and moved it here, and greatly upped the amount of TV time and direct mail that
Jail was poor.
I happen to live in that district, so
Yeah, too.
I think that was to their great credit. And then the other thing that happened was the way the map broke this time, there weren't any Democrat open seats. So they could play offense without having to worry about the back. Now, I doubt the next cycle will break that same way, but you don't know till you get into it. Although if you're a Democrat now in the state Senate, now I guess you're kind of relevant again, at least legislatively. So there's less.
I was saying credit should go to the fact that they even tried compared to some past times. I mean, I think under Jay Costa's leadership and a very aggressive campaign chairman, they were making it go and making themselves strong.
It'll be interesting to see if
I think that's a fair statement.
Senator Leach stays on, because most times the campaign chairman is not someone who is up, and he just got reelected and was campaign chairman again. So if he wanted to be it for a third time in a row, it would be his off election, so to speak. It'll be interesting if they continue that leadership there, and their fundraising can only get better now as they can show their donors who gave us X last time, and look what we did with it. So let's move on.
Yeah.
As we move ahead, are you folks going to take a look at, I've looked at some of the numbers, but where the Senate Democrats got all their money to run those races?
We'll do back checking. I mean, largely labor and trial lawyer.
Yeah.
It's just the normal sources.
That's what I saw too. It was, I thought it was significant, not necessarily from LawPac, but certainly from the Committee for a Better Tomorrow and
Right.
their other shell
The
organizations.
place at the top of the ticket, I don't know that it shows up yet in the Senate Democrat Campaign Committee. At the top of the ticket, what's new is entrepreneurs and business people who are young Democrats. And, it used to be, if somebody made money, you assume that they were Republican. That's not necessarily true in the new economy. So they are also picking up some of that entrepreneurial money. I don't know that that's filtered down to the campaign committee found those people yet,
Right.
but each cycle they have another shot.
Right.
The other advantage they had fundraising, and the Republicans had that as well, was on the spend side. They did not have to spend as much money on their get out the vote activities as they will have to with the electoral year. Because so much of that is taken care of by the national campaign through the state party and their victory operations. Those will certainly be the case in 2014, but there won't be nearly as much money. So especially on the Democrat side, when they just kind of done you for whatever you're running for, you owe us $25,000 or $50,000, whatever. There'll be more of that sucking the money out of them. Whereas this time, so much money from the Obama campaign and OFA, there's less impetus to have to put that money out because there was so much happening on their side. So what will be interesting on the national level is what the president and his political team do with OFA, which is Organizing for America, which became Obama for America, which has been kind of a shadow organization along with the DNC to really keep the Obama volunteers engaged and moving along. The focus on get out and vote. Well, their big task is done. They got the Big Daddy reelected. So the question is now in 2014, which is primarily a gubernatorial year, to elect the vast majority of our governors in that year, whether they keep it together and fund it, or whether it kind of scatters or gets absorbed by the DNC and the state parties.
The point Dave brought up, though, is one that I think is really important, which is, and I've asked our folks to look at it, we can probably sit down and compare notes, because we hear if we're working legal reform issues or whatever, the trial bar contributes heavily to incumbents, but in reality, looking at the open seats, and we know what that's going to show, shows where their true intent is, which is they're going to heavily fund Democrat candidates in open seats, and I think we're going to see a ton of money in those 3 open seats. I'd love to see those numbers.
And I'd likely send Republicans to
And we need that.
be aware of
We need
that.
to remind them of that, absolutely.
big blinking sign on your forehead.
AM, PM, you know, figure.
Moving on to the State House, as things stand now, it looks like each party picked up one seat. Republicans picked up the Bud George seat, Democrats picked up Mr. Quigley's seat in Montgomery County, who lost a precinct in Pottstown by 600 votes, which was part and parcel of the Democrat turnout operation, as they went to places where their voters were, and that's where their voters were. So for all the money spent back and forth, it's kind of a status quo overall election. And it appears that no Democrat incumbents lost.
It did do better than our predictions, though. The consensus average pick of the Pennsylvania Political Report readers was it would end up 108 to 95. So they're at least one better than that, probably two better, three better.
I have not checked the count this morning.
It's still the same.
Is it still 36? Okay, thank you. As the votes are certified this week, that's then when the losing side can determine if they want to fund a kind of a special look recount where you take a few and look or whether they want to do the whole thing.
Remember, if you want to recount, you have to pick the precincts, and it's $50 per that the challenging candidate has to put up front in cash for every precinct they pick that they want recounted.
I mean, it's hard to imagine that with 36 votes, someone doesn't want to do a recount here. Given all the money they put into the race already, what's another $50 per precinct? This
How many votes total in that district were cast?
I don't have that. I want to say about 42 or 43,000, but I'm not sure. 131st District, Justin Simmons has put enough space between him and Mr. Dealey that I think this is a good question. 28,000 total.
Yeah.
Yeah, back at the Sakona Levdansky seat, do you know what the Obama-Romney vote was there?
I don't. My bet is that if that was one place in that area that Obama did well, it was in some of those counties.
Yeah, the Mon Valley traditionally pretty good. But I don't know.
The reason I raised that is it may tell us if that was an anti-Lipdansky vote or a pro-Sakona vote. By looking at Obama, you
Right.
might discern a little more about that other about that vote.
Yeah, if David Green behind the president.
In the 3rd House District in suburban Erie, Brian Pizarro got nearly 54% of the vote.
Did I mention he's dating Congress's daughter?
Congress's daughter.
Is there anybody who didn't get a phone call from him reminding you of that?
Let's hope those things don't break up. In the open seat, what was then the open seat in the 50th District, Mr. Deweese's district, Pam Snyder, the Greene County Commissioner, won fairly handily. Again, that is a district that, absent the ethically challenged incumbent, was going to go back to where it has been before. Mr. Sankey, as we said, rolled over Mark McCracken, the incumbent county commissioner out there, by almost 61%. He is a good pickup for the business community going from Bud George to Mr. Sankey. Mr. Rossi got an impressive amount of the vote, even given that district was as Democrat as it is, against Mr. Billman, who had a tougher day with a smile on his face.
Get to know Mark Rotzi. We endorsed him. He's a small businessman. He was trying to say, he's trying to learn the labor lines just because they gave him money, obviously, in the race. But he doesn't know it. He doesn't subscribe to it. He's not going to, he's going to do what he has to do for that district and everything. But he is one that we can really talk to about a number of business issues. No, this is Dante Santoni.
So it's about 65% the city and 35%.
It's Muhlenberg Township, which just had the Exide plant just announced that they're the official is temporarily closing their dock for good on environmental matters and other things. 150 jobs that just got announced for Green Waspins District last week. He's one we can talk to about taxes, and I think legal reform, transportation funding. Some of the labor stuff straight up, hardcore, he's not going to vote for right to work state, but some reforms for UC, WC, maybe fixing prevailing wage to for inflation, that kind of thing. We can talk about.
Moving on now to some challenge races, excuse me, within the 16th State House District. Kathy Coder, this is one of those districts I talked about before where the House Republicans were contesting races where the Republican registration was under 30%. This is one of those districts. So with Republican registration at 29%, she got 44. This district is about 45% Allegheny County. That portion, the last time I looked, she was tied or narrowly ahead. The rest, Beaver County, that's where Mr. Massey is Parsons, that's where he's from. 25th District, Marcosi did better against Doyle than he did last time. In 31st State House District, Santa Sara again did better than they did last time. You've seen this theme before that a couple of the guys who had very close 2010s did not have very close 2012. The big Romney rally at the very end of Bucks County was in this House District, by the way. 71st again, Mr. Barber won last time by less than 200 votes. We will not have that trouble this time against Sheriff Staley, who was a former TV reporter. Given the closeness of other races there, I'm going to be curious to provide through the precinct results here to see, when you had the state senator having trouble and the congressman only winning 2-1. I'm curious what happened here. Mr. Mirabito, I think this is probably one of the biggest disappointments for the House Republicans and also for the business community trying to get rid of Mr. Mirabito. He continues to hold the most Republican county held by a Democrat, the distinction of representing the most Republican county district of a Democrat. Mr. Rogers seriously underperforming the campaign. The registration of this district is 50%, 51% Republican. We got 41%. And Lycoming County rolled for every Republican on the ballot, except for Mr. Rogers. 116th State House District, boy, this is a topsy-turvy race. And whatever the House Democrats' strategy was, it did not work. I wasn't able to figure it out, but it didn't work.
Apparently, Hill releasing that video on herself really worked.
If you're the House Democrat, how do you even recruit for this race next time? There can't be anything else worse about Tara Tuhill that hasn't been out there yet. She's got 67% of the vote. You spent an enormous amount of money. So I think she's going to, unless she does something, really more recently bizarre, she would seem to be okay in that district.
So we've established that the drugs are okay, riding was a camel was okay.
This is the district that the House Democrats took in Montgomery County. Mr. Painter is the now state representative-elect. 151st State House District. Let this be a warning. People who testify at Pennsylvania Business Council education summits, was it education?
Yeah.
On tort reform are now 0 for 1 in state house races. Mr. Salute was a reliable Democrat but was pro-tort reform. And he had testified at one of our events in 2011. Mr. Stevens greatly outperformed registration in that district. Madeline Dean continued her win from the special election by winning almost 2-1 against Nick Mariachi. 155th District, Becky Corbin, in terms of getting to know someone, she's a former staffer for both Schroeder and for Gerlach. So she comes into office not as your usual freshman, but as someone who has a good handle on things. She's kind of a chemist and an auditor by trade. So those of you who have issued clusters in that region, in that district, like all the Chester County districts, will get better regardless of how the redistricting ever happens. Because they put a new predominantly Democrat district in about 30 quarters. All the Republicans around that will get better because they'll shift some of their worst towns into that district. Dan Truitt, 51.4%. This is a big effort for the business community, and even more so for Mark Camp. The final numbers that I've seen show that Camp won by a little bit less than what he did last time. He won by about 1,000 votes in Twenty County. It's about 800 votes now. So there was a lot of money spent in this race, directly and indirectly by a lot of different folks. This was something that we helped on in terms of direct contributions by PECPAC and also some independent expenditures by the Pennsylvania Business Council. Hopefully that helps in the continuing effort to get additional tort reform done. And again, if you're the Democrats here, this is really your best possible set of circumstances. An exact rematch in the exact same district. Going into 2014, like I said, all the Republican districts in Chester County will be better. Unless he decides to go again, you're not going to have someone built to name like a fundraising for housing. So those races should fall off of the scoreboard, so to speak. Joe Hackett and I'm sorry to get
Another minute there. I was in Chester County.
which one?
The Drucker.
Sorry.
With one of the Chester County local chambers, and they pointed out that Camp was still running against Drucker's statement that he would consider the tolling project before he wanted to do it. Was that really a factor?
Without having seen any polling, if you're using it for a second time, it had to have some vote. Because you got to remember, those folks in that district are on that road all the time. It's like the turnpike for us around here, even more. So I assume that would be something that would be hardly against. And my bet is the amount of money he spent, they probably tested it to see. Well, not paying more money to someone they can't see. I don't know if there's ever a road project that has support before it's built. Once you get on it and see how much easier and faster it is, yes, but beforehand it's just, you know.
Yeah, I was just curious as to whether it was more power
Well,
rather than a single issue.
the other thing about that particular issue, though, where there's probably some confusion with voters, both the Reading Eagle and the Pottstown Mercury, and I don't know about the Westchester paper, but they portrayed it as tolling the motorist to pay for a train line that would go from Reading to Valley Forge and then into the city. So those who go a short distance paying the tolls, others can take the train a long distance. It looked like they were going to be footing the bill for somebody's train, and we're going to just charge them to use the train. So I think as other variations of that theme came out of, we'll improve this road and everything like that, even with that road buckling this summer in the heat and it being closed down in one day back in June or July or something like that, it just, they were told they were buying a train. And so I don't know, I'd read into it an infrastructure issue. Straight up.
When we put this slideshow together, this was looking like a recount, but since then, Mr. Bonner has conceded. So unless there are any surprises as the vote gets certified later this week, Nick Nicosi, who was in his early 80s, has won another term. His district gets a little bit better in redistricting, but they're running out of places to slice and dice votes to help them. Delaware County only gave Romney 39.8% of the vote. It was one of the three counties where Obama did better in 2012 than he did in 2008. The other one being Philadelphia, maybe the third one. If you want to know, email me. Again, it gets a little bit easier for the Republicans here, but this is probably the best case scenario for the Democrats as well. And finally, Dave Crowley, who's a great guy, who ran that Denny O'Brien's, which is now the NDSC, got about 45%. That is the end of this election.
Questions, discussion?
One question, I'd be interested in hearing your comment, kind of from a global standpoint. I mean, both sides have kind of, obviously in the post-election spin, both sides kind of point to areas where they ran strong, or whatever. But by and large, if you step back, other than the state row offices, you see that it was for the most part an incumbent election, where you looked at state house races where you would have thought Democrats would have done better. You see Republicans votes in high 50s. Vice versa out west. I guess.
Even there in the row offices, only the Attorney General that flipped parts.
Right, and so I guess I'd be interested, you kind of said at the beginning about, you may have commented about, depends on how you look at the houses or whether you're in the state, but I guess when you look at the vote that's coming out of Philadelphia, Delaware, and other counties, what is going on out west, is Pennsylvania fairly shifting to kind of like a little microcosm of New York State. You got New York City and suburbs, the rest of the states.
I don't think it's going that badly because I don't think there are any statewide elected Republicans in New York State that are obviously you have several for now. I did a chart, I don't have with me, the congressional turnout by, the congressional vote by party, 2008, 2010, and 2012. The registration is about 51 Democrat, 38, 39 Republican, and that balance 11, 12. Independent, third party. And the congressional vote here was 50 point something to 48 point something with 1% independent in this past year. So you see that Republicans are overperforming registration by almost 10 points. Democrats are about flat. So that holds hope if you were a Republican, and it gives you angst if you're a Democrat, because it shows you basically losing a lot of your own vote and a lot of the independent. And your own vote they're losing is in those two western TV markets. The other question that I think is more adroit to ask is the Republican Party nationally potentially here becoming only an off-year election party, meaning a party that can only win big seats, non-incumbent seats, in the governor year as opposed to the presidential. When you look at turnout and performance and vote from the presidential year to the non-presidential year, you see a huge drop on the Democrat side. 1,300,000. The Republican side a little under 500,000. If that continues to hold next time, that is what gives Corbyn a chance. And remember in 2014, we're going to have the once every 12 years super short ballot. There's governor, half the state has state senate, and everyone has state reps. That's the only congressional. Well, I think I'm public yet, plus it works. So there's no statewide besides one.
And no U.S. Senate race.
No U.S. Senate. So it's a short ballot like 1990 was. So the question is whether, if that's a good year for Republicans because of turnout, but there's not a lot up, okay, then does that really change things at all? On the congressional side, I would say no. On the House and Senate side here, you gotta wait and see what the distribution is.
Well, clearly, Republicans did a number on the congressional reapportionment maps, and so a lot of their successes probably, some of it can be attributed to that. Clearly,
Certainly margins, yes.
Yeah,
If you look at all those seats they dragged out of the southeast into Lebanon County, et cetera, the 6th got better, the 7th got better, the 15th got better. And they didn't move the 8th as much. That was normal gaming.
Barlettas.
Barletta. And then you look at the 12th district went up about 2.5 or 3 points more Republican district. And you can see what the margin. Roberts went from down 1.5 to up 2.
Question on the Barletta race.
here he did better. So you could say he was about average. The northern part of the district, he obviously underperformed, but he did raise any money, so it's hard to pull a lot out of that because it wasn't like he was on TV for a month and
And how many incumbents in the legislature won?
Pennsylvania legislature, Quigley, and Wands.
Can you read into this that this anti-pay raise, anti-incumbent senator is fading?
Well, after three wave elections, 06, 08, and 2010, we now had a flat line. Not for lack of trying or spending or raising a lot of money. So, I mean, you can't have waves every year, it just, the law of averages catches up.
In part, most of the architects of that, people identified with that are gone, either through the electoral process or the legal process.
Good, I'm getting it.
And so there's,
As the general public that,
well, I think they think it's
non-issue, I
either,
like our guy.
it's either done and it's over, and or they don't have a target for their hire. So there's nobody who personifies that thing. But, you know, and my feeling even over the summer was this is gonna be an incumbent election, it'll be incumbents will win, they'll be fighting by which party. And that held to be the case. But also national, I mean, looking, you know, US Senate, you know, Democrats had been 23 out of 33 and picked up 2. You know, so, you know, they did quite well. And, you know, we have status quo gridlock in DC. What did the US House change? It's +2 Republicans, you know?
No, the US House was probably +7 Democrats.
It wasn't, but
It's still a.
maybe at 25, so.
It's still a comfortable Republican.
Yeah, so you see very little change anywhere. Governors, Republicans pick up a few,
One, North Carolina.
so,
Which was the one swing state that brought it.
question, discussion? So we have 2 specials, probably in the spring. We were waiting to find out if the Chief Justice would think that he's going to seek retention, but he turned 70 in the spring of 2014, so if he's retained next year, he'll spend 3 months in office. And there could be a vacancy in the state Supreme Court, and we'll have to look at the Commonwealth and Superior Court, a lot of those races next year. So. Nothing else, we'll see you all PMA, 9 a.m. on Monday the 19th.
Thank you all.
Thanks to Bob Latham and Jason and everyone here at APC for the hospitality.